Now, what's interesting is we've probably all heard the term applied in a lot of ways, but AI too. Garbage in, garbage out. You can have the best AI tools, but if you're not giving it the right data, the right information, it's not going to be any good for you. So you're talking about impacting all these other different departments. You also talked about in our previous conversation how it's not just customer support ticket information, like voice of the customer and important data that we feed to the AI comes from a lot of different places. So I just wanted to know kind of like your philosophy on that, because segmented or fragmented data is a massive problem. I mean, I had a conversation with somebody who said I was in the 90s in some of the big Fortune 500 tech companies, and we were all talking about fragmented data. And it's interesting because we're still talking about it today. How do you think about the data and bringing it together so that we can use things like AI, but a number of different ways to tell that story?
Yeah, for sure. So data does come from a variety of different places for sure, because certainly there's survey data that we send out, whether it's CSAT or NPS, and then ultimately maybe a marketing team might have additional surveys that are sent out, or if you're a brand new customer, there might be more surveys that are being sent out as well. But then when we think of data, it's also a matter of what's available in the public domain. So again, user reviews, like if you have an iOS or Android app, certainly those reviews are part of what impacts voice of the customer, what individuals are saying on social media. And that's where AI becomes incredibly helpful here because it has the ability to, for lack of a better term, essentially listen, like be that behind the scenes look on what is being said, whether it's on Reddit or any other public forum, and to distill that information so it's a lot easier for you to intake. But because there's so many data sources, one of the big challenges, as you had mentioned, is that there's so much data and that data might be very, very difficult to manage. What I would often encourage is anyone who has a voice of the customer program or is thinking of starting one is to really focus on which data inputs do you want to focus directly on. There are so many inputs that are available, but not all of that might be reasonable. The second item as well is to also look at it from a context driven piece. There are a multitude of different departments that power an organization. All of those departments also feed into what voice of the customer could be about. So, this is a great opportunity to build empathy across different departments to understand what finance is doing to improve the customer experience, what customer success is doing to improve the customer experience, and of course, what customer support is doing, and ultimately, even product and engineering. Those might not be the only departments at your company, but ultimately, getting the story, building that empathy. And I really find that having employee empathy to understand what their peers and coworkers are doing and marrying that with what customers are seeing and experiencing actually builds a much stronger, unified view of what the ideal customer experience should look like. And having that empathy, building it once you get that level of understanding, once you invite users into your home, you're going to have a much better conversation and you're going to actually be able to impact some change because you have that shared understanding.